Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice. This should be part 8. We're on Revelation 19, verse 16. On his robe and on his thigh, he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, who cried in a loud voice to all the birds flying in the midair, come gather together for the great supper of God. So the angel standing in the sun, okay, he's not trampling the sun. He's standing in the Spirit of God and the bridegroom, Psalm 19. Okay, the Son is the bridegroom and the champion. Okay, the Son of God, the champion of God, the champion of the armies of God, the commander of the armies of God, the top martial artist commander who's earned it. Right? He said, pick up your cross and follow me. So he's earned the right to be the top martial artist in a way that's logical. No matter how you slice it, the argument being made here is it's the heavenly warrior who's symbolized by the sun. Remember Horus, right, with the sun halo and the depictions of saints or whatever, and Jesus with the sun halo over their heads. Okay, no matter how you slice it, it's the idea that Horus and Jesus is what comes to mind when you think of him, okay, are superimposed on. The false image of Christ was meant to create a false mental image in your mind. And it's more than just his look, it's his characteristics, because when they depict him as black, they use the same fairy kind of LGBT, kind of whitewashed characteristics. Pretty straightforward, right? So we see that the angel standing in the sun, the angel is an angle, right? He cries out in a loud voice. Again, there's the voice, right? Isaiah 42:13, right? Okay, the 1 Samuel 17:52 with the Israelites surging forward and crying out, right? The Lord will cry out. The angel cries out, right? It's the Spirit of God. It's the formation of God. To all the birds flying in midair, come gather together for the great supper of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, generals, and the mighty, of horses and the riders, and the flesh of all people. So those who continue the Baal worship, the flesh worship, the propaganda of the state, the psychology, okay, the corporations, the social clubs, the secret societies, the Freemasons, all these groups, those people continue to back up the idea that, the dragon, Dagon the dragon, that Goliath was backing up. So they continue to that. They continue to mock God. They change my voice. They change my video look and all my look at all my images in the spirit of Satan. And you see all these groups in society playing stupid instead of rallying to me to set the record straight. They're doing what they think they should do instead of what God is commanding them to do through me. Okay? And even though the government is seeking to hack my brain and interfere with my speeches, and they are to some degree, you can still see that the arguments being made from me are sound. And that's more reason for them to rally and not less reason. Okay, I am the gate, no matter how you slice it. The rally point. Isaiah 13, right? Raise a banner, the rally point. Okay. So that you may eat the flesh, the presence, of kings, generals, and the mighty, of horses and the riders, and the flesh of all people. So what happens when an animal eats the flesh of something, right? It mutilates it, right? It destroys it. What happens when people take an unnatural direction and they use technology and fumes and drugs and performance-enhancing drugs, what have you, and they breed with that mentality? It changes the way their flesh is. So their flesh literally is something different than other than what God intended, and they're supposed to be the natural and supernatural image of God. They're not. Okay, so they're being consumed by the fallacies of their thinking, by their falsehood, by their direction. Okay, they don't have the mind, body, soul, and spirit of God. They don't have the life principles / martial art principles of God. Their marriages aren't valid. Martial is marital scrambled. What have you? So again, it says, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, generals, and the mighty, of horses and the riders, and the flesh of all people. So all the people cheat me out of my right to lead, free and slave, great and small. Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to wage war against the rider on the horse and his army. Okay, so they're gathered together. See how everyone's cheating me out of my right to lead? And, who's on what side is a matter of principle. So they failed, right? The devil's the rebel, the deceiver. They're deceiving themselves and their friends and family. They've cheated me. So they've gathered together in their own ways, okay? You see how it's a lot of figurative speech. In a sense, in a strong sense, in the sense it's meant here. They've gathered together, okay, to wage war, psychological war, culture war, social war, political war, to wage war against me and the spirits of the righteous in the spiritual realm, and the principles, the energies of the righteous, the Spirit of God. They've gathered together to reject obeying God through me, and they're waging war instead. Because when you don't obey God, you rebel, and you're at war with Him. But the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who performed the signs on its behalf. With these signs he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. Now, these things are figurative and spiritual. Okay, the beast is a collection of ideas. It's an amalgamation, a combination. Let's say you had some people from, the Proud Boys, and some people who are from Trump's family, and some other Republicans, and some Democrats, and they all get together, okay, and they come into some kind of compromise spirit. The spirit that they're projecting is an abomination that's a combination of their spirits and their motivating forces, right? Their essence, their driving force, their prevailing tendency, their dominant principles. That's what it is. The beast is those things together. It's an amalgamation of all the rebel groups on the planet, okay? And they say there's several beasts, so there's several amalgamations, and they take on different forms as people relate to each other and interconnect and integrate in various ways, okay? And the beast, once they come into that spirit and they get carried away, they get spirited off, as they say, by the Spirit, then we see that they're deluded with the signs, right? They gave them signs of things they think they should do, right? Recently, Trump got shot in the ear, and he argued that it's a sign magically from God, but it's not. It's a sign from the beast. It's a combination of their falsehoods, their cultures, their spirits, their essence, their mentalities, their state of being, right? Statue, state, and state of mind, right? Government, ment meaning mind, like in the word mental, okay? And the word mental has the word men in it for a reason, because they're led in that kind of antichrist patriarchy of the rebels. And the word rebel has the word Baal in it, who is the main enemy of God in the Bible. Okay, gospel, go spell. So the fiery lake of burning sulfur isn't literal. Okay, wickedness burns like a fire, and it creates like a lake when the breath of the Lord, the actions of the Lord, disperses it in the way the Lord intended for the rebels who have fallen into the trap, into the net, which was put there for the rebels. It's like a spiritual net. If in principle they rebel against God, their principles will be a double-edged sword like Scripture that will slice out their essence, slice out their soul, and will affect their offspring with no way back. They'll have no valid redeemer, because the Lord is exalted and known by His acts of justice and righteousness. Okay, so there's no way to be righteous because you cheated people with your generational ill-gotten gains. Their offspring are in the lake of fire too, until their flesh dies, and then they go to the essence of the lake of fire, which is hell, and the smoke of their torment, figuratively speaking, will rise forever and ever. And then it says the rest were killed with the sword coming out of the mouth of the rider on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves on their flesh. Remember in Job it says that the hawk spreads its wings by the wisdom of God. Okay, so we have the hawk, and you have the sun. Psalm 19, the sun, the symbol of the bridegroom, the champion. So you have the top martial artist, right? You have the hawk, you have the sun. So just like the Egyptians superimposed Horus on the top martial artist, son of God, in the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, Hebrews, a Afro-Asiatic language, and the Jews and the Gentiles in Europe, they superimposed their false image of Christ on the Son of God. And you have that hawk connection, you have the bird connection, okay? And again, the eagle is a symbol of Zeus, and Zeus's Egyptian counterpart is Set, who's the enemy of Horus. Okay, so the true form of Horus and the true form of Christ is the Son of God, the top martial artist ever possible, and that is me. And we see in Revelation 22, 3 chapters later, verse 16, it says, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and offspring of David and the bright morning star. And the root, gets nutrients. It draws in the water of life. Okay, the root, an offspring of David, right? The tree, the root, and its fruit, and its offspring. And the bright morning star, which is the sun, because no star in the Bible is more pronounced as being of God than the sun in Psalm 19, which is a symbol of the bridegroom and the champion. Okay, and where the Son of God overlaps with God Himself. God created the sun. It's a symbol of those things. You don't worship the sun, you worship God. And I am the Son of God. And you know by my works, the way, the truth, and the life, the truth of the situation when interpreting a book that is figurative, okay, that must be interpreted with righteousness and justice. Isaiah 28:17, make righteousness and justice the measuring line and plumb line, is that I am the Son of God. Because if I'm magically not the Son of God, then who am I? I'm the top martial artist ever possible. The heavenly warrior defeats the beast. I'm the way to be right with God. You can't cheat me out of my right to lead. I've established the throne in righteousness in a way that transcends all other people. Okay? It's clear. I've achieved things that Christ, as a character in the story, did not achieve. Remember, the miracles are figurative. You can't just be crucified and say that you've done better than the top martial artist ever possible. It's a sword of Scripture, not a crucifix of Scripture. It's a sword of Scripture because it's a martial art order. Martial is marital scrambled. Okay, martyr is not marital scrambled, but the word martyr is like the word martial arts. Okay, because it's an application of that. But it's not the application at the end when the heavenly warrior defeats the beast. That's what my legal and peaceful 11 years and counting top martial artist challenge. Okay? Just like David and Goliath, the root and offspring of David. So the completion of single combat challenges is my outdoor sparring challenge. And a little kid should be able to tell you that there's not a person in history that I wouldn't outmaneuver with the same principles in sparring that I used to triumph over all these countless martial arts studios and all these countless groupings and nations and militaries and police forces. Okay? Use those same principles in single natural and supernatural combat to outmaneuver them there. Chop off their head, hit them in the carotid, hit them in the femoral, what have you, the spine, the eye, the throat. Okay, it's clear that I'm the top martial artist ever possible and the bright morning star, the brilliant Son of God. Thank you.